All right, let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Today, we're diving deep into the aftermath of the Derby della Capitale, a match that, always gets the blood pumping.
Oh, absolutely.
It's January 5th, 2025, and AS Roma just pulled off a 2-0 victory against their rivals, Lazio.
Impressive.
You might be thinking, okay, another Roma win, what's so special about this one?
Mm.
But trust me, the way they shut down Lazio's usually potent attack was fascinating. We're going to break down exactly how Ranieri outcoached Baroni and what this means for both teams going forward.
It really was a masterclass in tactical awareness from Ranieri. He knew exactly how to exploit Lazio's weaknesses, and the players executed his plan perfectly.
Let's rewind to the starting lineups, because that's where this story really begins. Ranieri went with a 3-4-2-1 for Roma, which raised some eyebrows. He's not usually known for that formation.
Right, you usually see a more traditional 4-4-2 from him, but this time, facing a Lazio team known for their high press and possession-based game, he needed something different.
So help our listener understand, why was the 3-4-2-1 such a smart choice here?
Think of it this way. The three center backs, Mancini, Hummels, and Indica, were like a brick wall. Mancini and Hummels, with their years of experience, were reading the game, anticipating passes. While Indica used his strength and speed to shut down any breakthroughs, that meant Lazio's usual tactic of quick short passes in the final third just wasn't working.
Okay, so Lazio's attack is basically suffocated. But what about Roma going forward? Wasn't it risky to essentially play with only one striker?
Not in this case. Because while Lazio was focused on breaking down that wall of defenders, Roma's wingbacks, Saelemaekers, and Tessende were basically playing as auxiliary wingers, providing width and pace on the counterattack. So every time Lazio lost the ball, boom, Roma was off to the races, often with the numerical advantage.
I'm starting to see why you called this a masterclass. So while Roma is set up for these lightning-fast counterattacks, what's Lazio doing on the other side of the pitch?
Baroni opted for his trusted 4-2-3-1, a formation that relies heavily on midfield dominance. They had Guendouzi and Rovella, the double pivot. Essentially, two defensive midfielders shielding the back four and also initiating attacks.
For those who might not be familiar with that term, it's like having two anchors in midfield, providing stability defensively, but also the first step in building up play.
Exactly. And ahead of them, Beli Bashiru was the creative hub, trying to unlock Roma's defense with three balls to Isaacson and Zaccagni on the wings, and Castellanos leading the line.
Yeah.
Lots of talent on the pitch.
Yeah. And speaking of talent, let's talk about the players who really stole the show. For Roma, all eyes were on the captain, Lorenzo Pellegrini.
He was due for a big performance, and boy did he deliver.
He broke his goal drought in style with a curling shot that even the most diehard Lazio fan had to admire. But it wasn't just the goal, was it?
Not at all. Pellegrini was like a conductor out there, dictating the tempo, finding those killer passes, and inspiring his teammates. His leadership was palpable.
And let's not forget the man who set up that opening goal, Alexis Saelemaekers. He was a menace down that right flank, wasn't he?
He was unstoppable. Lazio's left back simply couldn't handle his pace and trickery. The assist for Pellegrini's goal was a perfect example of his vision and precision. But he didn't stop there. He went on to score a goal himself, proving he's a threat both as a creator and a finisher.
He was directly involved in both goals, talk about making an impact. But while Roma's attack was firing on all cylinders, they also had a rock at the back in goalkeeper, Miles Svilar.
He made some crucial saves, especially in the second half when Lazio was desperately trying to claw their way back into the match. His positioning was excellent, and he showed great composure for such a young player.
You could see how his confidence grew as the match went on. Now on the Lazio side, despite the loss, Tati Castellanos was their main source of danger.
He was giving those Roma center backs a real workout. His relentless running and physical presence kept them on their toes, but he was often isolated up front, with Roma's defense cutting off any service to him.
And unfortunately for Lazio, his frustration boiled over late in the game. That red card for the altercation essentially sealed their fate.
It was a moment of madness that you just can't afford in a match of this magnitude. Lazio needed cool heads to try and mount a comeback, but that red card really took the wind out of their sails.
It highlights the importance of discipline in these high-pressure derbies. One lapse in judgment can have a huge impact on the outcome. So we've seen how the initial tactics and key players shaped the game, but what about the adjustments made throughout the match? That's where things got really interesting, right?
Absolutely. Both managers were like chess grandmasters, constantly adapting to the flow of the game and trying to outmaneuver each other. After those early goals from Roma, you could see a shift in Ranieri's approach. He knew protecting the lead was key, so he instructed his team to drop deeper and absorb Lazio's pressure.
It's interesting you say absorb the pressure, because it wasn't passive at all. They were still dangerous on the counterattack, even with a more defensive posture.
Exactly. That's what made Ranieri's tactics so effective. He didn't just park the bus, he ensured that Roma remained a threat going forward. Even with a two-goal cushion, Lazio's defenders couldn't afford to relax for a second.
So while Roma is comfortably sitting on their lead, what's Baroni's response to being 2 goals down? Did he panic?
Not at all. He made a couple of substitutions at the start of the second half, bringing on fresh legs in attack with Dia and Shona. They were injecting pace and creativity, trying to stretch Roma's defense and find those gaps.
And they did enjoy a lot of possession in that second half, but it felt like they were running into a wall. Why couldn't they break through?
Roma's defensive organization was just too good. Remember that back three. They were disciplined, compact, and always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Plus, Roma's midfielders were tracking back diligently, providing extra cover.
So you have Lazio, who love to dominate possession, suddenly forced to play a style that they're not entirely comfortable with.
Right. And this is where perhaps Baroni could have been a bit more adaptable. Maybe a change in formation or even a more direct approach.
Well,
Something to disrupt Roma's defensive rhythm might have been more effective.
interesting point. Sometimes sticking to your usual game plan just isn't enough, especially when you're up against a tactically astute manager like Ranieri.
Absolutely. And this is what separates the good managers from the great ones. The ability to read the game, recognize when your initial plan isn't working, and make those crucial adjustments can be the difference between winning and losing.
So we've talked tactics and adjustments, but let's not forget those individual moments of brilliance that often decide these tight matches. Pellegrini's opening goal was simply stunning, wasn't it?
Word class. The way he curled that ball into the top corner, leaving the goalkeeper with absolutely no chance, it was a moment of pure magic. You could tell it was a goal that meant a lot to him, too, breaking that goal drought in such a crucial match.
And Saelemaekers, not only did he provide that assist, but his overall performance was a joy to watch. The way he was taking on defenders, creating chances, it was like he was playing with a point to prove.
He certainly made a statement in this match. His pace and directness caused Lazio all sorts of problems, and his goal was the icing on the cake. It was a performance that will surely boost his confidence going forward.
And then, of course, there was Mel Svilar in a goal for Roma. He looks so assured for someone so young, especially in a high-pressure environment like the Derby della Capitale.
It's not easy to stay calm and focused when the crowd is roaring and your opponents are throwing everything at you, but he did it. Those crucial saves he made, especially in the second half, were vital in securing that clean sheet for Roma.
He really seems to be maturing as a goalkeeper, and performances like this will only help him grow. Now, on the Lazio side, despite the loss, Tati Castellanos showed glimpses of why he's considered one of the most dangerous strikers in the league.
He was battling against three very experienced center backs, but he never gave up. He was making runs, holding up the ball, trying to create something for his team, but he just didn't get the support he needed.
And that red card, while it was a moment of frustration, also highlights the importance of discipline. It was a turning point in the match, and it's something that Lazio will need to address as a team.
Absolutely. In a derby like this, emotions run high, but you have to keep your cool and stay focused. One lapse in judgment can cost you the match.
This deep dive has been really insightful, especially in understanding how the tactical battle unfolded and the key individual performances that shaped the match. But I'm also curious about the broader implications. What does this result mean for both teams going forward?
Well, for Roma, this win could be a huge psychological boost.
Beating your rivals in such convincing fashion has to do wonders for team morale, right?
Exactly. It reinforces their belief in what they're doing, and it shows the rest of the league that they're a serious contender. They're organized, they're clinical, and they have a manager who knows how to get the best out of his players. This win could be the springboard they need to push on and really challenge for the title.
It definitely is a statement win. And for Lazio, while it's a setback, it's not the end of the world.
No, not at all.
They're still a very talented team.
Oh, they are?
But they do need to learn from this defeat, don't they?
Absolutely. They were outplayed tactically. And they need to figure out how to break down teams like Roma, who defend deep and in numbers.
And maybe be a little more adaptable in their approach.
Exactly. They rely heavily on their possession-based game. And when that's disrupted, they can struggle to create clear-cut chances.
Yeah, this match was a perfect example of that.
It was. But look, they have a lot of quality in their squad. And I'm sure Baroni will use this experience to make the necessary adjustments.
I'm sure we haven't seen the last of this Lazio team.
Not at all. They'll be back. And they'll be looking for revenge in the next derby.
Which is what makes this rivalry so exciting.
It's one of the most passionate and unpredictable derbies in the world.
You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's why we love it.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything in this deep dive into the Derby della Capitale.
I think so. We've analyzed the tactics, discussed the key moments, and looked at the potential impact on both teams going forward.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And it just goes to show that football is a game of fine margins.
One tactical decision, one moment of brilliance, one lapse in concentration can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And in a derby like this, those margins are even finer.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the Derby della Capitale. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.